as a storyteller, that's what I do best. So maybe it'll manifest itself in documentary films. My follow-up here will be, over the next few years, working with this group of chiefs in these communities and all the people I've met on this trip to see how this is progressing, and if we're trending the right direction or the wrong direction. Right now, of course, it's all the wrong direction, but I think that people are just waking up after a long slumber to a lot of the negatives here, and a lot of the positives that give us the resources to be able to do this right. I maintain that development can be done right. It just needs to be done. It needs to be done with a scientific framework, good regulatory framework, and buy-in from the people that are directly affected by the development. So anyway, I've given my commitment to the chiefs, the First Nations, representatives, and I'll restate that commitment now. I'm in for the long term, and I'm gonna keep my eye open for opportunities to be constructive.
I'm sorry, we gotta continue on. We've got very limited time. We'll go to the gentleman in the back here. Keep it short, please, so we can get as many as possible.
Fred Harris with the Business News Network. I won't stand to block the cameras. But Mr. Cameron, did you see anything in your tour yesterday that tempered your view of the oil sands and the efforts at environmental reclamation, those sorts of things? And just sort of as a corollary, do you see a role? What role do you see for the oil sands in the interim until we get to that new world?
I think it's critical that any discussion of energy policy that involves fossil fuels needs to be in balance with the discussion of how we evolve past fossil fuels as quickly as possible, obviously. So anything, in my worldview, anything to do with oil development is an interim step. However, I will say that personally, and that's not a view necessarily shared by some of my colleagues here, I believe the oil sands, oil is an important resource for Canada and an important way for North America to wean itself for security reasons off of Middle East oil. So there are things that, aside just from the money and the capital base that it's going to bring into Alberta, for us to all like this, but it has to be tempered. It has to be tempered, really tempered, with a sense of what the cost can be. And for me, it was a roller coaster in the last couple of days. First thing I did when I got here, jump on a helicopter, go fly out over the surface mining operations. And it's horrific, I mean, to anybody with an environmental bent, anybody that loves the forest. My very first impression flying out of Fort McMurray was, my God, what beautiful country. I mean, I now live in a city where the colors don't change, throughout the year, and it really took me back to my childhood to see, to see the aspens and see the colors, and just, just gorgeous. And then to fly into the big open pit mines and the tailings ponds and all that. It was horrific. So I thought, okay, this is as bad or worse than I thought it was. Then I talked to the oil guys, and I got their perspective and listened to them about the technologies that they can bring to bear. And I actually found some hopefulness there, because some of the things that they need to do for economic reasons are actually aligned to what will be better for the environment. And those are the things that you got to find and encourage. And if regulation can encourage that as well. I'm going to give you an example. You've got the in situ process, right, which is based on shooting steam down, liquefying the bitumen, and bringing it, pumping it to the surface. All right, a lot of energy goes into that, right? But they're looking at methods that involve, they've got what they call the steam-oil ratio. You're probably familiar with all this stuff, right? Okay, but really what it is energy. It's the energy-oil ratio. And part of it's dependent on the nature of the formation. Part of it is the process. Well, they've got a lot of R&D for processes that are much more efficient, energy efficient. They can do cogeneration. They can use some combination of steam and solvents. The solvents can be recovered and recycled, so it's less energy into the system. They figured out a way to do it with lower temperature steam. That's less energy in. The fewer hydrocarbons you burn, to extract hydrocarbons to then go burn them in a car someplace, the better it's going to be for the environment in terms of the total tonnage of carbon into the air. So I saw places to be hopeful, and I saw places to be deathly scared. I think the thing that everybody should remember here is that despite the sort of the business cases that are made and the technology cases that are made, you've got First Nations people with really legitimate concerns. This is going to impact them directly, regardless of the global warming issues, the economic issues to the province, and so on. This is going to impact them directly in terms of where they live, and that I think needs to be elevated in the conversation, equal to these other economic and business considerations.
Okay, I'm afraid we only have time for one more question.
Naomi Thompson with CBC. Jim, could you say something about the legislative environment in California? Because here in Alberta, we look at the low carbon fuel standard and other pieces of legislation in California as affecting what is the future path of our industry here. And we're aware now that there's Proposition 23.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah,
well, the oil companies, actually the two Texas oil companies, are trying to roll back the low carbon regulations in California, and the green energy economy there is nascent, but it's definitely showing a leadership role under my good friend Governor Schwarzenegger's leadership over the last few years and previously. And they're attempting to roll that back right now, and polling is showing that it's a 50-50 fight. So again, it's an issue of public awareness and so on. That's another fight. That's another fight that I'm involved in California. But I think Alberta has the same opportunity to demonstrate leadership in these areas, to demonstrate leadership in terms of balancing, the need to develop with the needs of nature. I believe personally that nature has a moral right to exist, and that we should respect that, because we are in and of nature, whether we choose to ignore it or not. That's a little bit of a spiritual, philosophical argument. The hard-nosed business types don't like to hear it, but we're either going to evolve to that state, or it's going to be forced upon us. And I would like to think that we're better than that, especially as Canadians, that we can find our way to that wisdom, which these gentlemen represent, because they've known that for thousands of years.
Excellent. So just a couple of things here. Mr. Cameron does have to leave right now. I would ask all members of the press and those of you with cameras to please stay situated where you are so that he can get to his next appointment. We're going to continue on for a couple more questions with our national chief and our regional local chief leaders here. If for those of you that would like to ask questions of our First Nations representatives. So on behalf of the Indigenous Environmental Network and First Nations hosting, thank you, Mr. Cameron, for being here. And
thanks very much. I've got to run out to a scheduled interview. I would encourage you to stay and ask questions here. This is a valuable resource that's been brought together today, and they can answer anything that we haven't covered already. I am going to have to dash out, and I won't have time to talk to anyone outside, because I've got to make this other thing. So thanks very much for your attention.